There's a moment that quietly slips into every day, a small, almost invisible crack in the noise of living, when something stirs inside you. Maybe it happens as you walk past a coffee shop and see the soft swirl of steam rising from someone's cup, spiraling upward like a slow dance between warmth and air. Most people rush past without noticing, but you pause. You wonder who that person is, what thoughts sit behind their eyes as they stare out the window, what invisible story brought them here to this very minute. Or maybe it happens mid-conversation, when a simple sentence, something ordinary and unremarkable to anyone else, suddenly fractures your attention. Your mind starts running through 10 possible meanings, replaying tone and expression, examining what was said and what was left unsaid. You hear the silence between their words more loudly than the words themselves. If that sounds like you, you're not strange or alone. You're part of a quiet, scattered tribe of people who move through life differently, people whose minds don't skim the surface but dive deep into the unseen layers of meaning. In a world that celebrates speed, efficiency, and instant responses, you carry the weight of depth. You are the pause in the middle of everyone's hurry. While others are quick to answer, you wait. You turn things over in your mind, feeling the shape of ideas before letting them go. When someone sends you a short text without an exclamation mark, you don't just see words. You sense temperature, tone, mood. You wonder if something shifted, if the absence of punctuation carries quiet distance. You notice how the afternoon light cuts across the floor, how dust floats in it like tiny galaxies. And in that single image, you feel time moving, fleeting, beautiful, and merciless. What most people misunderstand about deep thinkers is that it's not simply about being smart, analytical, or introspective. It's about feeling life with such intensity that it sometimes hurts. It's about seeing invisible threads between people, between moments, between choices, the hidden patterns that connect everything. When you think deeply, even the most ordinary scenes become layered with meaning. A simple handshake can feel like a story. A song can carry the whole weight of your past. You don't just watch a film, you enter it. You hear the symbolism whisper behind every line, sense the director's quiet decisions, and recognize the fragile humanity in each character. You don't just talk with friends, you listen between their words, searching for what their hearts are too tired or too scared to say out loud. And afterward, when the conversation ends, you replay it. Not because you're anxious, but because you're curious. Because you genuinely want to understand. This constant processing, this endless search for connection and coherence, can be exhausting in ways most people never experience. While others can silence their thoughts when the day ends, your mind keeps moving, mapping, connecting, analyzing. It's like carrying a radio that never turns off, tuned not to one station, but to all of them at once. Psychologically, deep thinking often begins as protection. For many, it's a survival skill disguised as a personality trait. Maybe you learned early in life that noticing small details kept you safe, that reading people's moods could predict storms before they broke. Your sensitivity became your shield, your awareness, your anchor. You learned to listen not only to words, but to energy, tone, and silence. You became fluent in subtext because you had to. But sometimes it's not about survival at all. Some minds are simply wired differently, born curious, endlessly fascinated by the unknown. They hunger for questions without answers, for meaning beyond logic, for conversations that linger in the space between certainty and mystery. These are the minds that find small talk unbearable, the ones that crave depth like oxygen. Yet, that same gift can become a weight. Deep thinkers often stumble into something called analysis paralysis, where every decision splinters into a dozen perspectives, each one valid, each one carrying consequences. You see not just the surface of a choice, but its ripple effects, how one action might echo through time, how one sentence might shift a relationship. That awareness is both a blessing and a burden. It gives you wisdom, but it also ties you in knots. And somewhere between all that reflection and hesitation, a quiet loneliness grows. You can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone, not because you dislike them, but because they seem to live on a frequency you can't tune into. Conversations skim along the surface, and you find yourself quietly sinking beneath them. yearning for something real, something raw. You crave connection, but not just any connection. You want someone who will ask what you dream about at 2 a.m., someone who sees through your composure and recognizes the symphony inside your silence. You want to talk about why people fall in love with those who hurt them, why goodbyes echo for years, why we all keep chasing permanence in a world built on change. Yet there is an unspoken beauty in being a deep thinker, an invisible grace. You see what others overlook. You notice how sunlight rests differently on someone's face when they're in love, how the sky darkens in subtle hues before a storm. You recognize the poetry hidden in daily life, the rhythm in footsteps, the soft ache in goodbyes, the way memories taste when they return unexpectedly. Your memory isn't linear, it's emotional. You don't just remember moments, you remember textures, tones, meanings. A single song can open the floodgates of time, not just returning you to a place, but to the entire atmosphere that once surrounded it. The smell of rain, the weight of air, the heartbeat of who you were then. That depth gives you empathy that can't be taught. You understand pain that isn't yours, because you've walked its emotional landscape through someone else's eyes. You don't just imagine how someone feels, you feel it. But this kind of empathy comes at a cost. Deep thinkers often find themselves exhausted, not from doing, but from feeling too much. You notice tension others ignore, absorb emotions others release. You read too many rooms, carry too many energies. You spend hours trying to make sense of why things happen the way they do, even when there's no answer to be found. There's a kind of fatigue that comes from trying to hold the entire emotional world in your head, a weariness that sleep doesn't fix. You might cry at a commercial, not because you're fragile, but because you see the humanity pulsing inside it. You might avoid crowds, not because you dislike people, but because you sense everything, every smile, every sadness, every unspoken worry, all at once. The world doesn't always understand you. It calls you an overthinker, a pessimist, a complicator, but you're not making things complicated. You're simply noticing that life already is. You don't overthink, you deeply think. Your mind doesn't skim, it explores. It dives into every current until it finds truth, and that truth often holds paradox. The same mind that finds beauty in a stranger's kindness can spiral into existential fear about life's impermanence. The same awareness that connects you to everything can also make you feel like an outsider, someone peering in from the edges of a world that moves too fast to notice itself. To understand yourself as a deep thinker is not to fix or simplify your nature, but to honor it. Your depth is not a malfunction. It's a form of wisdom. It's the way your spirit navigates reality. Many deep thinkers exist in multiple timelines at once. While their bodies sit in the present, their minds travel backward through memory and forward into possibility. They relive conversations from days ago, dissecting what they said and what they meant. They imagine alternate versions of their lives, how things might have unfolded if one word, one decision, one day had been different. This isn't daydreaming. It's consciousness stretching beyond linear time, but it's also draining. By night, when the world sleeps, your mind is still awake, turning thoughts into patterns, feelings into questions. You're not tired from moving, you're tired from thinking. Even small decisions can feel enormous. Choosing a meal becomes an ethical reflection. Attending a party becomes an emotional equation. Every choice is a map of consequences, and you see all of them at once. This mental depth can make you feel deeply connected to everything and, paradoxically, disconnected from everyone. You understand humanity's shared soul, the laughter, the loss, the longing, yet often feel you have no one to share that understanding with. You smile through small talk, but inside you're asking bigger questions. Why do we fear endings? Why do we measure worth in noise instead of stillness? Why does love fade when it's most needed? Emotionally, your world isn't binary. You don't just feel joy or sadness. You feel blends of emotion, layered and nuanced. Joy arrives with a shadow of melancholy, because you know nothing beautiful lasts forever. Love glows with quiet fear, because you've seen how fragile it is. Even happiness feels sacred, because you're aware of how easily it can vanish. That's why you feel deeply, love fiercely, and remember endlessly. But it's also why you sometimes retreat, because the world feels like too much. Deep thinkers eventually learn about boundaries, not because they want to distance themselves, but because they need to survive their own sensitivity. You begin to realize that you can't hold everyone's pain. You can witness it, honor it, and still let it pass through you. That's not selfish. That's necessary. Your creativity often grows from this same place, a place where feeling becomes unbearable until you release it. You write, paint, sing, build, or dream, not to impress, but to translate your inner universe into something others can touch. Your art becomes your language, your therapy, your offering. But even creativity can bring pressure. You see your masterpiece so clearly in your mind, vivid, flawless, complete. Yet translating it into reality feels like trying to paint the sky with a single brushstroke. The gap between your vision and your expression can feel heartbreaking. And then there's sleep, the one place where your mind refuses to let go. You lie awake, not anxious, but alive with thought. Questions, ideas, and flashes of memory play endlessly. The border between waking and dreaming blurs. You don't fear the night, you just can't quiet it. The modern world doesn't make it easy for deep thinkers. Social media is overwhelming because you can see through it. Every post carries emotion behind its filter, the ache behind the smile, the loneliness beneath the caption. What others scroll through mindlessly, you absorb deeply. It's not entertainment to you. It's data, energy, humanity. In professional spaces, the struggle is similar. While quick decision-making is prized, your mind demands time to understand, to process, to see every angle. You're not slow, you're thorough. You're not indecisive, you're deliberate. And when you finally do speak, what you bring often changes everything. Your insights are rare because they come from stillness in a world addicted to speed. The key, perhaps, is learning to honor your rhythm, to stop apologizing for being reflective, emotional, slow, or sensitive, to realize that your depth is not wrong. It's simply different, a different way of living, of feeling, of understanding. Your journey isn't about becoming lighter. It's about carrying your depth with grace. It's about turning sensitivity into strength, curiosity into wisdom, and reflection into art. When you accept that, something inside you settles. You no longer chase simplicity. You make peace with complexity. If these words resonate, know this: you are not broken. You are not too much. You are simply built to experience life in full color, while others see in shades of gray. Your depth is your compass, your challenge, and your contribution. The world needs you. The ones who feel deeply, see quietly, think endlessly. You are the mirror that reminds humanity of its own soul. You are proof that beneath all noise and movement, there is stillness worth listening to, and infinite complexity worth understanding.